Graspable economics. What? This is how things are.
Exactly. Yeah. Always when I need something, then I'm like, okay, I have to learn this now.
Hello.
Hi.
Today the visit is in the studio of Sebastian Reis, who is an Austrian artist based in Helsinki. And you can tell us what you do.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me for this podcast program. But so I'm a visual artist. As you said, living in Helsinki, working here. And in my practice, I combine photography, painting, and sculptural elements. So, yeah. So basically, that's kind of the materialities I work, or like the media I work with. But then I add things wherever I need something. But
The first time I saw your work, it was last year when you had the exhibition in Galleria Hippolyte.
Yes, yeah.
And it was very interesting how you have this like a play between the flat space and the volumetric space in your works. That was what kind of took my attention.
Yes.
There.
Yeah, and I think generally in my work, I'm very, very interested in. Well, on one hand, I'm very much interested in the image, but also I can't want to push the image further or see what images are, and so quite often there is kind of a two-dimensional surface that can be also a bit bent, but normally it's two-dimensional, and then my works get these three-dimensional structures quite often, so that they're freestanding in space and get some independency of. Yeah, so they're not depending on the wall, but they're self-sufficient elements that are placed in space. So I don't know, maybe that's something also, this self-sufficiency, that is kind of generally in my practice an element, so that I try to do everything myself. Whatever I need, I just try to learn skills that I need then for my work. So
I think that's a big part of what makes it fun to be an artist, because doing something with your hands is always very
absolutely. I mean, yes. Well, I think there is kind of this. There is of course very many approaches towards that, but I think there's a lot of artists who very much enjoy making things with their hands.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It depends on the person.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
You're the first Austrian artist that I meet in Helsinki.
Yeah.
How did you come here?
Well, it's the usual, I think, or one of the usual. That it was my through a relationship, and then I stayed in here. Yeah. So my ex partner was Finnish, and then I moved to Finland, and then applied in the academy, and then I studied there my masters, and then I just stayed.
Yeah, so you took one of the two main roads to Finland, and
exactly.
then you added the second.
Yeah, I combined. Yeah, exactly. I combined both, the most common. Yes, yeah.
You did your masters in Kuva. What did you study there?
I started in the time and space, but then I graduated from the painting department. So I used quite of both. Well, again, as in my work, I like to combine things and pick the elements that I needed from both departments or courses and so on. So just floating in between the.
It's interesting that the painting. I wouldn't think when I saw it on your website that you studied in Kuva, I was thinking, did you study printmaking or sculpture?
Yeah.
Painting didn't come to mind.
Yes. Yeah. I think my personal interest in painting is kind of quite a art historic approach towards it, or elements towards it, or. Yeah, so, and I think the core of it is kind of really this image making, or this different kind of image making, in the tradition of painting, this kind of a way of innovation of making images over the history. I think that's something that is very, very important in my work. Yeah, so that's.
So not taking the images, but making them.
Yeah, exactly. I think. I mean. Because if it's I use a lot of photography as a source image, so I take photos, but then I kind of in a quite tedious process, print them and transfer them and cut them out and glue them back together and then overpaint them. So it's there's I see somehow this also taking these images with the camera or like the phone or whatever tool I have or like need just in the moment. It's just one step in many of my productions. I think like it's a tool. It's a similar tool as like kind of having a saw there or like some wood tools, or like they're all necessary tools to make the final thing, but they are not. Yeah, well, I mean, I think what I enjoy of it is that you can make images rather. You have something to hold on while making images. So if you have maybe a digital, like a photo, like analog or digital, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, you can totally add whatever you want to
yes.
it and not just reflect.
Yes, exactly. So you just and it's basically what I started to do in my work quite a long time ago, that I just add layers and layers. So like first with the transfers of the printouts, or like I make fragments and then I print them out and then I transfer them. So I lose quite a lot of parts of the image, and then through adding layers, the image kind of goes into maybe different directions or different appearances. So I think this also like kind of. There's also this element of repair quite a lot in my works. So there's these fragments that are taped together, and sometimes there's like small pieces missing, and then I replace them with some other pieces that just fit in.
Yeah, they are very much like a mosaic.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, there's just like added fragments, and I think fragments and layers. Yes, yeah. So yeah.
When you tape them. Because I mean, you use this paper tape. I'm just looking at it right now.
That's the backside.
So
of a work. Yeah.
How long does it is gonna last like that? Is it gonna break easily?
Well, yeah, I think. I mean, this is kind of
not break, but like how durable.
No, I think this paper tape is very durable. So this is kind of very durable. But of course, I think my works generally float between this monumentality and fragility and ephemerality. So they are very. Or like recently the last years I made quite big works out of this paper, and these are taped together. But at this and they get like quite often these wooden structures to stand in space, as I said. But I think there is always this feeling that they could crumble, as you said, like this crumble apart any moment. And it's just it's just paper and it's tape, and it's just like it's not like a canvas or an oil paint,
or a piece of marble,
or a piece of marble or granite, or exactly, yes. So in that sense, I think this is something that I'm very much interested in, so that you can make these monumental things, and then they have this appearance that they're very monumental, and like also you referred to the show in Hippolyte, where it looked kind of appeared like rocks or carved stone. But in the end, it's just paper that is kind of very fragile hanging there, and doesn't. I mean, it will last for sure some time. It depends probably how it's stored, but it will not be there for eternity.
Nothing will be there for eternity.
But exactly, and I think it's good that you say, because that's like, I think this kind of the element in my work where I play with, or quite interested in art history and longer time periods, and then there's a lot of these monumentalities that have there, but also they dissolve, they disappear, they kind of there's then fragments left, of course, or there's like hints of that they have been, but well, as you know, there's quite evolved cultures have been just eradicated or disappeared, and no one really knows why. And then there's this kind of leftovers of fragments of the big monumental works, but like partially the daily stuff just disappeared. And I think these are elements that I'm very much interested in my work, to have these different time scales in my work, so that I can build something monumental, but it can also disappear quite quickly.
Yeah, this like, okay, I'm not going to analyze your work.
Please.
Turns too much into no. I'm more curious about your story and how you got to where you are.
Yeah.
Generally, so I want to bring you back to when you were little. Like, did you always think you would be an artist?
Okay. I was like, when I was small, I was very much like interested in art, like from small onwards. But then when I was, even as a teenager, but then I was like, no, I need to do something more graspable. So I studied economics and was working in research in economics. Like this was my first
graspable economics.
Yeah. Well, or something is, I don't know. It felt back then in the time that it's more, something like my love for mathematics was there very much in like some force that was pushing me there. But so I graduated from that and worked, but studied aside art history, like then worked also in that area for a bit, and then I decided that why wouldn't I do the arts that I always wanted to do? So like just took then this leap and was like, okay, now I actually want to make my own works, or like, and actually all the time aside I did like kind of like photographed a lot. Like it wasn't that I didn't do any creative manual creative work, but it was just never, or for very long not maybe the thing that I thought this is like I really can do that, or I really should do that, or I just
But this is a really, really rare combination, I would say, like economics and art.
Yeah.
Together.
Yeah, I mean, probably. Yeah, but
I mean, artists are notoriously famous of being very bad at economics.
Yes. Well, I mean, of course, economics is kind of, well, like the origin of economics is like philosophy. So it started like in the 19th century, it's kind of, so of course older, but like the change where it got shifted into something else was like the late 19th century. So when it became what is kind of the idea that economics is something like natural scientific and you can calculate it, because before that it was more like really a verbal explanation of trying to understand the society through the monetary system, try to understand how the world is connected with other things, but like on a like through this kind of ideas of exchange maybe, or something like that. And so in that sense it's kind of a very good tool to learn to analyze maybe the world, analyze the surroundings, and so because I think quite often it's mistaken that people think it's like kind of business administration, kind of like, because the first
sounds
thing,
a bit like it,
because the first thing you would think is like economics, like it's case like you just try to make more money, but actually it has the source in like it has the source in philosophy and understanding of systems. Of course it is then used, like for example how to, I don't know, to improve like state activity, or like kind of this very redistribution. These are kind of very important elements in the field actually. Of course there is like then the more then there's more like this free market and growth thing, but that's kind of, it's like there's different schools, of course. This would be like this Chicago area like did develop this kind of free market, sell the state off and delete all the welfare state, but but the idea is kind of, or that this is kind of like then ideologies, I think, more than kind of
it's interesting because I know nothing about it.
Yes.
Or like very, very little bits here and there. I have found some information.
But I think that's kind of a that's generally quite a thing that I'm quite curious about, because it's not really anything that is taught at schools, or at least when I went to school. Like it's not, and it should be actually this basic understanding of how like systems work should be. I think should be actually the basic, something very basic, because we live in a very complex capitalistic system, or like society with like different.
You encounter these things every day.
Exactly, yeah.
Basically.
But in ways of education, it's not really like in this basic school education, or so it's maybe a footnote somewhere, but it's not like kind of like I think this would be quite important for society to like that people understand or have a bit of an idea what are the patterns, what is the like, who are the players, and these kind of elements.
I think that the people who are younger now are a bit more aware of these things.
Yeah, probably.
Thank you, you too.
Yes.
But definitely in school it's not really paid attention to. Do you think that somehow has influenced your art?
I think like kind of this. or like now I think of it, I think when I kind of changed, I was a bit like, why did I study? You know, kind of like, why didn't I do this from the beginning on? Because it's actually what I really want to do. But I think it helped me quite a lot to build a worldview, to understand like some surroundings a bit, and create kind of models, because this is actually what you like in a broader sense, but this is kind of what for example like the field of economics does quite a lot, because the world is the economical world is so complex, so it's kind of narrowed down to this super simple, like if you make a formal model, like it's super simple, like it takes kind of deletes first everything, and you just have a few factors, and then you kind of try to kind of build it up and make it more complex. But of course the real world is so complex that you never can make a model and kind of calculate things, so you have to kind of simplify everything. And I think that these are elements that I think are quite, in some ways, quite present in my probably thinking of and doing stuff. So
maybe those models you build through the images that you print, and then you said you're like it's like destroying everything, and then just putting several elements. I mean, I think of course it's quite literal. Like I think this would be quite a literal translation of the word, but maybe I think a bit more in a like more like basically like basic understanding of the world. But of course I like models in my work.
What
do you do now? Are you working on something?
I work on like I started to like continue this thoughts that I had, like I was in the previous show in the Mu Contemporary Art Center in Helsinki. So there's elements of natural phenomena. There is like I think like generally my work is kind of built on a combination of personal encounters and then cultural occurrences, societal occurrences, or like maybe now I expanded this a bit towards maybe this natural phenomena, but like also there I'm quite more interested in this cultural implications of them. So like in this last exhibition I was very much like interested in this kind of what I called maybe like a sublime spectacle, like something that is on one hand very very scary and very like threatening, because it's like something uncontrollable, like an eruption of a volcano, but then still at the same time it's like this huge spectacle where people just sit there and watch the eruption, even though it's like in a way life threatening, but you still would, well of course in a kind of safe distance, but you know.
When you mentioned sublime, I mean, this is interrupting your line of thought. No, sorry about that. I was just like one of my previous guests, Oscar Dempsey, he was talking about the sublime. He also was very interested in that.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, you might be curious to check that episode. But anyway,
yes. So I kind of these are the elements that are floating now in the work. But it's so generally I think it's quite a lot. Or the basis of my work is quite a lot of a combination of subjective experiences and cultural and art historical occurrences. So I'm work in that direction. I continue now exploring that.
Do you have some like a specific process you follow when you work, or does it depend on the project that you start?
No, I think it's not. I think this kind of we could call a project, or like the focus of the work that doing currently, just I think it occurs through several elements. So it's not like that
it's not one model.
No, exactly. No, it's not like kind of that I'm like, oh, now I make work about that, or like now I engage with this. It's more like I think there's kind of this nebula of stuff, and then things just appear a bit more clearer, and then I try to follow that path. I would say like so like I think there's a lot of like elements, as I said, like art history and cultural history is, for example, something that I'm very very fond of. There's something very very important for me. So a lot of elements come from there. Then I'm very much like interested in literature. So there's a lot of elements. So it's like kind of, and then there's of course the visual world. So and then it's kind of somehow elements appear somehow, and then I just follow that path, or like they somehow in my mind they are just like, but wasn't this here and that was there, and then I've seen this and somehow this makes then sense to follow this direction and see what's coming out of there, and then maybe developing some kind of broader idea around it, or include it into some broader idea or something like this. So this is kind of my.
Does this happen throughout some like practical process that you go on, or like do you first think about the whole thing and then start working?
Again, it's a combination of things. So like I think like working with material is kind of a very essential part like of my work, like working with materiality, physical work, like it's kind of, so there's this trend where stuff grows out, and then there's the kind of maybe something with more like a, I don't know, you don't really need to make it theoretical, but like a more like conceptual, maybe more like a conceptual element. So there's these two strengths somehow, and then they just collide, and I think that's kind of like it's neither this one nor the other, but it's really like a combination of things. So
I was maybe more asking like if they happen together over time, or is it like first the conceptual starts and then you
they happen. I think they're kind of, in a way you could say maybe they're two practices, and then they just they are there all the time simultaneously, and then in a perfect case they just at the right moment they are both at the same spot and they fit perfect together, and then there's maybe some work coming out of it, and then they divide maybe again, and then kind of it's like this this kind of, and then these are maybe the moments where I think then there make some things that really become a piece of work that I show somewhere, or some if these moments are just right and just it makes sense in these both worlds.
Do you have some upcoming event or an exhibition?
At the moment, I've like more really like finally after this last year that was quite intense. Some time to develop new things, but like in a year I have a duo exhibition coming up, or like in October next year. So this is the next thing I know of. So I'm quite I'm actually quite looking forward to spend time in the studio now and well play with materials and read a lot, and this kind of a bit of this kind of working time that I didn't have actually in some time now. So it's a very nice it's very nice to have that.
Is it early to ask where is it exactly?
It was in Maatila in Helsinki.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So next October would be nice to see.
Yeah.
I have a question usually about the themes in the work of my guests, which I think we already quite covered. But how did you end up towards exactly these themes? Like, of course it just happens over time. I guess. But like, is there some specific points that you would recognize that led you to that, or?
No, I think it's kind of my like this very very strong interest in art history and cultural history. I think this is kind of one of these elements that were always like they're always present, like being really So this kind of I think through that it evolved then to have this kind of visual world that kind of plays with that and takes elements of maybe visual representations of previous epochs, of previous cultures, of kind of with the leftovers of culture. So I think this is kind of maybe where I could see that this kind of this practice evolved out of, and at the same time, on the other hand, this image making or this use of photography, because I remember, like as long as I remember that I took photos. So it's like it was something very natural. So it took me also then quite long or when I changed from or decided that I give it a go to study art and explore the kind of this world of the arts, like as an artist, and not like as as a researcher or
photography is very accessible, so it kind of can be a bridge between art and the non-art disciplines.
And exactly, and because it was so normal for me, I didn't even think that this is something you could use. You know, kind of it was just normal to take photos. So I wasn't really it was more this eye-opening moment than when a friend of mine who is a very great artist and he was kind of in this when I started to dive into this idea to actively become an artist or like see how I could do that or how I really could do more work, and I was like, yeah, but you're photographing anyway, so you have like all these works there, and I was like, yes. So it was kind of hidden in plain sight, so to speak, probably. Yeah.
And then you did actually another bachelor, like in arts.
I did. I studied in Leipzig, and they have this old system still. So there's no real bachelor. They have still this kind of diploma system in Germany. So the art academies, because they kind of exclude, they have never been part of this Bologna process somehow. So I studied there in Leipzig and the academy. This kind of is called Vordiplom, but it's kind of this first part of the studies, but you don't get a degree out of it or anything. So I did that there, and then I did the masters in Helsinki. Yeah.
How do you sustain your practice nowadays? Are you a full-time artist? Or?
Yeah, no, I'm full-time more at the moment. I am. Yeah, well, luckily I have a working grant at the moment, so that really helps.
Also, I've heard.
Yes, that's kind of the beauty of it. Yeah, that you can do.
But over the long term, have you had other jobs alongside being an artist, or
yeah, I mean, of course,
have you managed somehow without?
Yeah, I mean,
those?
Yeah, it's like kind of, it's here and there, and yeah. But I have to say, I was quite fortunate also here in Helsinki or in Finland to get a lot of a decent amount of grants, and yeah. So
do you involve somehow your family or friends in your work?
How what is this
know.
like?
I mean, some people ask advice or discuss. Some people use them as subjects.
Yeah. No, of course.
Some people ask for practical help carrying stuff around.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think this is kind of. I think this is somehow I think the basic of being an artist, or that you're like. I think like also the beautiful thing of art that you help your peers, and peers help you, and whenever you need something or you talk about your work or with
sorry, I just got distracted by that sound.
Yes.
But we'll talk about the sounds later.
Yes.
Do you have some well, of course you connect with other artists, but is there like some community around here, or is it?
Well, I don't like. I think there's probably a lot of. You mean like community, like here? No,
here.
No, not in my studio. No, this is kind of.
No, not in your studio. Yes. There are no other studios around here.
No, there is not that I know of. No, it's like we're in a basement of an apartment building. So yeah. I think people don't even know that here's a studio. Like people who live in this apartment, they don't even know that I'm here. Yeah.
So you don't do loud work too much.
I do a lot of loud work. So yeah.
But maybe they don't think that it's an artist's work.
Yes. Yeah.
These sounds can be produced by other construction.
Yeah, it's just exactly. It's just loud machines. Yes.
But yeah, we will get to the studio in a bit.
Yeah. But of course, like if we go like to this, if we say like kind of a community, but of course you have like, or like not of course, but I think that's kind of the element of also being an artist, that you have like maybe friends or from studying or peers or over the years that are kind of your maybe your artist community, that, and I think it's quite of course individual, because there's always maybe different groups where you connect with some people like very well over your work, and kind of there's like so I think I
think it's easier if you have studied in the academy then this community kind of comes by default,
because of course like because also being an artist is not like kind of other professions where I go to an office and there's all the colleagues sitting, or like, you know, kind of like it is well, it's a lot of time in the studio or time outside looking for things or doing research, or like kind of there's like it's not like per se like you do that work so you immediately have a community, like
no,
because,
for sure.
because if you work, for example, in an office, or you obviously have immediately a community because there's someone else sitting at the next desk and you have conversations about your work, you know, kind of, it's like so yes, I think like of course studying art in the place then where you live is kind of quite helpful to build up like your network or friends or community or however to call that,
which is actually a nicer maybe way if of course if you are lucky to find the right people, that you can choose your community and not have it like just on the next desk by default.
Exactly, I think so too.
It's important for you to have this kind of community feel.
Or like I mean, of course, it's very important to have people around that you also trust with your work, like kind of to talk about your work or getting information, you know, kind of exchange ideas. Like it's a lot of that.
Do you have specific routines when you come to work, or do you come every day to work?
I come every day to work. Well, I have coffee most of the time. But
that's an important point.
I don't know if this is a routine, but
if you do it every day, definitely it's a routine.
But like the days can look very different. It really depends, like what where in the process I am. What, like, it can be that the days are very different. I come so it's not. I don't think that they have a pattern that I'm from 9 to 10 I do this, and like it's not, it's very like I would say quite an intuitive iterative process. Like it can be that I get materials or like be here or be somewhere else and read.
Have you ever been in a creative block?
Yeah.
I think some people have said no to that.
I mean, I think it probably would be a lie if I would say no. But I think like for example, if you have, or at least for me, like for example, a bigger solo show or so, and then afterwards there comes this emptiness. There's I think always things I would like them to do, or like of course I collect a lot of ideas over the years, and then think like, now I could go back to this and do that, but. So, but I don't know if I don't know what a creative block then really is. Like, of course, like there's still like ideas what to do, but maybe it doesn't feel right. So I don't know if this is then a creative block. Like probably it is in some ways,
Yeah, kind of.
But I think like after these bigger things, there's then quite often this emptiness, and it feels like you have to start anew, even though it might be just a continuation of what you did, But it might be also just feel like, okay, you have to start from scratch because...
It does feel like that, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And of course it's not from scratch in reality.
No, but it's like this subjective feeling exactly of being, being like, okay, it's everything has to start fresh, and you forget that you build up over quite many years, like, a practice or like a certain way of working, and then you have to just rediscover it slowly, and then like this works for me then, and then sometimes it goes super quickly, and sometimes it takes a bit longer. But
So you just keep going.
Yeah. I just go to the studio and try to do stuff, but there can be a lot of frustration also in these kind of parts of it. But I think this generally, I would say in this creative world, because also like. Well, of course, if it's because you're quite, of course, like, yes, you talked about community and friends and so on, but of course you're quite alone out there because your practice is generally the practice of in this kind of creative world is quite individual, and approaches are very individual and very subjective, and of course, like there is kind of no, in a way, there's no right and wrong. So, and of course, I think that if you're stuck somewhere, like you can of course ask for advice, but in the end you have to find your own way out. The way out of it, exactly. So
take your straps of your shoes and just lift yourself.
Yes, because there is no because no one can make the decision for you. I mean, of course you can outsource it, but I don't know if then the result is that you are unhappy with your work, or like, kind of like, it's like, or it doesn't feel your own work, or these I think so yeah.
I noticed that some of your works have German titles.
Yeah, I think especially I think in the beginning, or the previously basically all works had German titles, and now it got a bit diluted maybe. But I had always this feeling. So mainly they have a German title, then the English translation with it, and then they had like a subtitle, which was kind of a simplification of, or like this one sentence what I did in the work. So this is kind of also quite often part of it. So like it's kind of like I made an image of this and that, or so that just to kind of really to make it kind of really accessible, and maybe to demystify what the image then actually, like, kind of like you might see something else, but it's then very like a very banal description of the work, or something that is kind of also used in art history when you like analyze works with ekphrasis. So you just really simply describe what you see instead of trying to convey knowledge. So if you see like there's this figure in a painting or something, I would just say like, okay, figure like standing there. So like not like, oh, I know it's this saint, or like, it's not, you just really try to go to the basic and then build up on that, so that you really also don't miss anything if you look at stuff. So I think this maybe is like, so, and I have this kind of is also part, but but like these German titles were quite off, because of course German is my mother tongue, and there is kind of like that, obviously there's like kind of elements in it that are can be very useful for titles. but this is now, I think now in the last couple of years it got a tiny bit diluted, so but it might also have, I don't know, like, it's not that strict anymore, that it has to be German. It can be also other titles.
So are you still first thinking the title in German and then translating it, or
no? I think This is like English? I think this depends now very much on the works. Like some are immediately like I have a German title in my head, and sometimes I have an English title in my head, and sometimes it's very difficult to find any title, as always.
I've never spoken with people about the titles.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, like
go into.
It's like sometimes it's from the first second on very clear, and this is kind of the which title it will be, and this is the biggest relief, because it's a title that fits, that draws everything together, and it's perfect. Like, it's like it really conveys also this verbal element of what you wanted to do with the work, or want to do with the work, but sometimes it's not, and then I think it's a very hard work to find the right title. It can last very long.
How much would be the longest that it's taken you to find a title?
I think, if we talk, for example, about exhibition titles, I'm thinking like partially like when you start thinking of the show, so like a year, 1.5 years to find the title that in the end fits with the work. So like it's always like, so it's kind of, but sometimes it goes in fractions of seconds. You have to write. And it's like, of course it's that. It cannot be anything else.
Yeah. It's strange how these things. Like.
But in that sense, I think like.
So the title is important generally.
Title is important. Yeah. It is. It is a part of the. It is part of the work as everything. Yeah. It is kind of. It is
sometimes
a different
it's the first
layer.
encounter.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, it depends on the person who's. But I would. I could see that some people would first read. And then
I think it is kind of it is quite. I would say. I don't know, because like at some point I also realized that I started first reading and then looking at works, but when I discovered that I do it, I decided not to do it anymore. So like, but it's like it somehow creeped in, but it's like maybe something also. Well, of course, something verbal feels maybe in some ways easier to clinch on, maybe. You know, kind of if you look at something, it's like it feels you can just outsource the thinking process very quickly. You just look at the words, but then of course you're like, no, hey, it's one element of the work, I would say. And yeah.
Do you try to explain more in the description and title, or do you leave space for the person to have their own?
I try to leave space. Yeah, I try to leave space. Yeah, so it'd be like, of course, I can provide my own interest somehow, but like I try to not be didactic about what there is or should be seen, or
yeah, because maybe if you do that, it becomes very quickly like this professorship almost.
Yeah,
like this is how things are.
Exactly. Yeah, like this bit finger pointing at things, and I don't know. I think of course there's also like sometimes necessities for it, but I think also like, well, people can think, or like it's good if people think themselves, or they like, or interpret things, and like it grows to maybe anyways it will grow in other directions what the artist intended. There's always an interpretation of the person who reads or looks at things. It will be always go into the direction of the person who interprets the things or looks at things. It will never be that the thoughts of the artist or whoever will be like exactly like reproduced by the person who looks at it. So it's like kind of, there's anyways always a distortion. So like, and people are very creative. They are very creative, and there's like combinations seen that well, it happens that you know, then people talk about your work, and then you're like something that you like do and that you are kind of subconsciously do, but someone else just is like, yeah, but isn't this that? And you're like, oh yeah, you know, you're absolutely right. But it didn't verbally occur to me ever to say it in this way. But yes. So you figured it all out.
Yeah. I mean, it gives you a different perspective also on your own work.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very nice to hear if like what people say then about your work. Or I think it's very fruitful like encounters quite often. Yeah.
Sometimes I have spoken with people about social media and the role of social media in your practice somehow. Are you active there?
Very, very limited. I also I have like a Instagram account, but I'm not. Yeah, I take also quite often very long breaks of it. So and then I use it more like. Yeah, I don't really use it. Like sometimes if there's an exhibition or so, I post some photos or some photos of works, but I'm not the biggest user and fan of this social media world somehow. Yeah.
It is another effort there, for sure too.
Yeah, even though it's of course it's in quite many ways also a nice tool to see what other artists are doing. Like, you know, it makes it quite. Yeah. Because like it has of course it has also quite, elements that can be very useful, I think. Yeah. But I'm not that actively now. Yeah.
Okay, let's maybe then talk about the studio. Your studio, you mentioned it's in a basement. You are the only one using it.
Yes, yeah.
Have you shared studio before with other people?
I did, yeah, a bit, but I'm.
But you prefer to be alone.
I really prefer to be alone in my own world here. Like, it's it's kind of. I also like. Even when I was studying, which I mean, I think it's really fantastic that studying in the academy in Helsinki, that back then we got, at least for the second year of the master, everyone got their own studio, like their own room, with like a door to close, like kind of really, they were partially really big studios, and I think it was really fantastic. But even there, it felt sometimes like if someone, you know, you're in your own room and then you leave the door open and people pass. Of course, no one looks, but it sometimes feels like, hopefully they don't see what I'm. You don't have like.
You don't want to show what you're doing.
No. I like to show things, but like if things are just evolving or they're just in the very early steps, I like to be myself more sure about them before I enjoy showing my works to people, but not like this half ready things, and then you're just a bit confused if someone says something, you're like, oh, okay, just do something else. Yeah, but yeah, so yeah, I'm kind of, it's quite nice to be a bit, have this own working space, and then of course you can, well, like, you know, invite people, or people come by and
people invite themselves,
or invite themselves, exactly. That happens. So yeah, so of course then it's maybe a bit more in control, but
yeah. How long have you been in this one?
Yeah, since after graduating, actually, or like a bit later than, so 2018, I think, so 6 years soon, yeah, and end of the year, I think, yeah. It's quite a while, but it changed quite over the years. It changed quite often, its appearances. So we have just recently built some new shelving and created some more storage areas, because of course every day the studio gets smaller if you do work, because it's also my storage space. So it's not like, yeah. But I have most of my things on wheels. So I can
wheels are the best.
Yes, so I can push things around, and I have this table that is kind of just 2 boards of wood that can be flipped off, and the legs can be put away. So I think this is kind of part of my studio, that it's very versatile. At some point I used it as a dark room, so I darkened the windows, and then I had an enlarger built up here and made big enlargements towards the wall. So like it's a very, now it's partially a wood workshop, so it's kind of changing its appearance always for the needs that are there, and yeah, and also like elements change very much their appearance. I built like, well, I built it still when I was studying, like this kind of box which I used kind of as a kitchen first, like it's just like a bit of a cabinet on wheels, but then it became like then I used it for painting, where there was the paints on top. Then I used it as my dark room equipment, and now it's the wood storage. So I just flipped it over, screwed the wheels on the other side, and now it's like this box where it's just all my cut-offs and pieces of wood. So it's kind of like there in the corner. Yeah. So like I think things are just changing all the time, and I think that's something very, very beautiful about a studio space, that you can make whatever you want out of it. I say just screw wheels on something and. So
do you use analog photography for your works?
Partially, yeah, or used, but
I should have asked you this long ago.
No, yeah, but it's like it's whatever is by hand or needed. So recently I used much more digital photography, but like it can be any, like it really depends on the things that I need. But like I think in the beginning of when I started to study and I worked with photography, I did basically only analog photography, and because like what we talked before, maybe like this manual labor was missing a bit in this. So there was, at least, even though it wasn't maybe. There was this physical element of creating. If you go to a dark room and make this big, and especially also big prints, like just you have to tape the photo paper to the wall or use magnets, and like kind of it's really this physical, it becomes this physical thing, which I really much enjoyed. And then through that, I think I because also working in a dark room is quite. It's something I never really enjoyed. I just enjoyed it because I needed it to make my works, but at the same time I think it's quite unpleasant quite often. But still, it's part of the work, or has been quite a lot of part of the work. So and then I think this is how I started to develop all these different ways of making images and this layering, so that there's still kind of a physical process that is somehow involved with this photo image, or this basic image. And then there comes all these other physicalities and layers on top of it, yeah.
And then you discover woodworking.
Yes. Well, that was always something that I kind of enjoyed, but I never, yeah. But but I think it took me then also like kind of more like, oh yeah, no, really can do the things myself, or like start to teach myself all these kind of different things, how to build stuff. So like I think always when I need something, then I'm like, okay, I have to learn this now. So then I just start to experiment and build stuff.
And you have a nice collection of tools over there.
Yeah, over the years, it's getting more
remarkably organized.
Yeah, this happened very recently, so yeah.
Should have come here earlier to get a raw feel of the space.
Yeah.
How big is this room, by the way?
It's 20 square meter. And there is kind of a tiny storage behind the shelf, so there's a bit of more storage, like it's maybe 3 square meter.
It's also nice that you have a water point here. It's not something that every studio has.
It's a good space. Yeah, it has all the elements that I need. Well, it has windows, which is good for a basement.
Very nice windows for a basement.
Yeah, because normally people, I say like that my studio is in a basement, they're like, oh, but it must be really dark. And so, no, it's actually not. There comes a lot of, especially evening light comes a lot in here, and it's very beautiful, soft evening light.
Was there any point in time when you were not thinking that you need a studio?
I think it was always. It's more like the fear that you might have to leave the studio, or it's more like this kind of the opposite, that I'm like, oh my God, what do I do if I don't have a studio?
What's your favorite part of the studio?
I think really it's versatility. Like I think this is kind of my, this is the answer to your question.
Sure, it can be.
Yeah. No, I think it's not anything like specific. I mean, I like that I can open the windows. So like, these are elements for me that I really enjoy. But otherwise, I really think like that the space can be one day like that and the next day very different, because I have a different like a different task to do that day, or I need a bit more space on the floor to make some of the big works, or so I think this is kind of what I really like, that it's possible in this space to just change things quite quickly.
And you have enough space to do that.
It is, exactly. So it's just enough. Yeah, I was very recently cleaning and reorganizing and or like going through old stuff and emptying shelves. So yeah, now is again new space or old space for new work. Yeah.
Do you go to exhibition openings?
Yeah, sometimes. Like it's not like a thing that is kind of mandatory, but like it depends. But yeah, I go sometimes.
Where would you usually go in the city when?
I like any of the galleries, or like museums. I haven't been in a longer time for openings, but normally I enjoy normally to go later on to see the works. So not for the opening, but it really depends. Yeah.
I mean, to properly see the works, usually you should go later, yes. Not at the opening.
But yeah, it depends. Like really, it depends what kind of. Maybe if there's some friends going, or like, of course, it's kind of then more this social thing, or yeah.
Are there some artists that you follow their work, and like you would like recommend or say that they have influenced you in any way?
Well, I mean, I think generally for me, it's like there's a lot of artists that have like in some way or the other influenced my work. But it's not I would say that specific, that is like, oh, I'm like, I'm like, I like all the works of this one artist. This is never happening, but there's always some works I'm a bit like, also just like, oh, why did they do this work? Like kind of a bit this kind of like, I don't know.
They are also human.
Exactly, no, but like kind of for this idea of this, like, being like very like a
like no, this, I'm not asking for like idols
yeah. But like this, but no, there's a very big amount of art, like. And I think it goes again like quite over like longer time scales. So like I like early Renaissance is like Piero delle Francesche or so, but then Philida Barlow, Vilja Chelmins, there's like than Giuseppe Pinone. Like, so there's like kind of from very different areas of art or practices that are kind of
I wouldn't expect any less from somebody who is constantly making connections from different areas, of course.
So I think there is kind of this kind of elements from these artists that were at different times, of course, also over me making my own stuff, like kind of there are different times, different people of importance, but yeah.
Currently, who would you say that is somebody you?
Yeah, I mean, I think just saying that are named, but also like I think Anselm Kiefer is someone who is very interested in.
Because I'm building this list on the website of the podcast. I don't know if I mentioned to you or not. Sometimes I forget to mention it.
Yeah.
But people who inspired other people.
Yeah.
So all the previous guests and the artists they mentioned are there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
super, yeah.
it's like a little library of
a catalog of people to look up. Yeah. But yeah. So yeah.
That's the reason I asked that. What would be some other places of inspiration for you? Apart from history books?
Like cafes outside. Like it can be like it can be any place that is kind of it's not very like specific to me, I think. Like but
I mean, not that I mean that you.
But I think
you would go to a place and you would be
No.
But just like places you would like to.
No, I think
for.
I think what like kind of places that quite often have like some kind of create some interest are like maybe this places that are on the outskirts of it's like not suburbs, but like even a bit further, like kind of maybe construction sites. I think that is something that I kind of like very much to look at. It's like this very weird elements of kind of deleting something and building something on top and like destroying, but also creating something. So there's this kind of like, I think something that I'm quite curious normally about. Yeah. So yeah, and also like how quickly, like in construction set, how quickly the surroundings change, or how quickly they can it's like
they do that here, I think, like in Helsinki, it happens
it's
rather
like
quickly.
It's super fast. Like of course it can be still a year, but like you can really see within a weekly, if you pass, it's like there's something taken down and something else is built up there, and it's just like, yeah. So I think there's this elements of destruction and creation or construction that is kind of something quite, well, disturbing, but also something that has something very, very interesting in it. Yeah. Yes.
I mean, disturbing things are often interesting.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you so much for this talk, and good luck with the long working period ahead.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy. That's the best part of it, I would say. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the podcast.